Imagine a city where the buildings are skeletons. The sky is black with smoke and the ground is frozen solid. It is September 1942, Stalingrad. Here, tanks are useless. Airplanes cannot see through the smoke. The mighty German blitzkrieg has stopped dead in its tracks. In this hell, death doesn't always come with a loud explosion. Sometimes it is silent. A soldier steps out to smoke a cigarette. Snap. He falls. An officer lifts his head to check a map. Snap. He is gone. There is no warning. There is no enemy to see. Just a muzzle flash from a pile of bricks 800 meters away. Welcome to the sniper war. To understand the sniper, you must understand the battlefield. By autumn, the battle had turned into something the Germans called the Rat War. The front line wasn't kilometers away. It was the next room. The kitchen was Russian. The living room was German. The life expectancy of a new Soviet soldier arriving in the city was just 24 hours. One single day. But amidst this chaos, a new breed of soldier emerged. One who didn't run. One who didn't panic. While others prayed to survive the day, these men and women hunted. At the start, the advantage lay with the invaders. The German Wehrmacht snipers were professionals. Trained in specialized schools in the Austrian Alps, they were masters of camouflage and ballistics. Their weapon of choice was the Karabiner 98K. Accurate, lethal, and equipped with high-quality Zeiss optics. A German sniper could a man's head from 600 meters away. They dominated the daylight. They pinned down entire Soviet platoons. If you raised your head above the trench line, the Germans made sure you never lowered it again. But the Russians had something the Germans didn't. Desperation and rage. They handed out the mosin nagant rifle. It was older, longer, and clunky. But in the freezing Russian winter, where delicate German gun oil froze and jammed their weapons, the mosin kept firing. The Soviets realized that mass infantry charges were suicide. They needed surgeons. They needed hunters. And from the banks of the Volga River, a movement began. A deadly competition where they tracked kills like a sport. Among thousands of soldiers, one name rose above the rest, Vasily Zaytsev. He wasn't a professional soldier. He was a shepherd from the Ural Mountains. He learned to shoot by hunting wolves and deer in the snow. Zaytsev didn't just shoot, he thought. He said, I like to outwit the enemy. In his first 10 days, he killed 40 Germans. But it wasn't just about the numbers. It was about fear. When Zaytsev was in the area, the Germans were afraid to breathe. Sniper warfare is 99% patience and 1% action. Zaytsev and his students developed tactics that are still used today. They used the mannequin trick. They would put a helmet on a stick and raise it slowly above a wall. If a German shot it, the helmet would move. The German sniper would think he got a kill, but in reality, he just revealed his position. Seconds later, a Russian bullet would find him. Survival wasn't just about bullets. It was about the cold. Snipers would lie still for 10, maybe 12 hours. You moved, you died. If you coughed, you died. They urinated in their trousers because moving to relieve themselves would give away their position. The steam from their breath could betray them. They wrapped their rifles in bandages and rags to break up the outline, making the gun look like just another piece of debris in the ruins. This constant threat broke the German morale. A German lieutenant wrote in his diary, "We have lost the concept of time. In Stalingrad, there is no day or night. There is only the sniper." The Russians used this fear. They targeted the water carriers. They targeted the cooks. If you stop the food and water from reaching the front line, the army starves. It was brutal. It was inhumane. But it was war. The German high command was furious. Their officers were dropping like flies. They needed a solution. According to legend, they sent their best man, the head of the Berlin sniper school, Major Konig. His mission was simple: find Zaytsev and kill him. The chessboard was set. The two greatest snipers of the war were now hunting each other in the same few square miles of ruin. The arrival of Major Konig changed the atmosphere of the battle. Zaytsev knew something was different. His own snipers, experienced men, were being killed with impossible precision. They were being shot in the early morning, directly through their scopes. This was the work of a master. Zaytsev realized he was being hunted For the first time, the hunter became the prey. The city of Stalingrad, with its millions of hiding spots, suddenly felt very small. For days, the two men circled each other in the ruins of the industrial district. They studied the shadows. They memorized the position of every broken brick. It was a game of nerves. The first one to make a mistake would be the last one to die. Zaytsev and his spotter, Kulikov, found a position between a pile of bricks and a sheet of iron. It was a dangerous spot, right in the middle of no man's land. But it offered a view of the German lines. They waited. 1 day passed. Nothing. 2 days passed. Still nothing. The German master was patient. He knew Zaytsev was out there, and he was willing to wait as long as it took. On the third day, a Soviet political officer, impatient for results, stood up to point out a target. Instantly, a shot rang out. The officer fell. The bullet had come from under a sheet of corrugated iron and a pile of tires. Zaytsev had found him. The German super sniper was hiding beneath that iron sheet, but knowing where he was wasn't enough. If Zaytsev looked through his scope now, the glare of the sun would reflect off the lens, giving away his position. The German would put a bullet in his eye before Zaytsev could pull the trigger. So they waited for the sun to move. As the afternoon sun began to set, the shadows lengthened. It was time to spring the trap. Zaytsev's spotter, Kulikov, slowly raised a helmet on a stick. The German fired. Kulikov screamed in pain and collapsed, pretending to be dead. It was a masterstroke of acting. The German major thought he had won. He thought the duel was over. For the first time in days, he relaxed. He lifted his head slightly to verify the kill. That was the mistake Zaytsev was waiting for. In a heartbeat, Zaytsev fired. The bullet pierced the German officer's forehead. The duel was over. The king of snipers had fallen. While this duel became legendary, the battle around them was reaching its climax. The Soviet army had launched Operation Uranus, a massive counterattack that surrounded the city. The hunters were now the trapped. The German Sixth Army, once the most feared force in Europe, was starving. They were freezing. They had no ammunition, no food, and no hope. The snipers who had terrorized the streets were now too weak to lift their rifles. In February 1943, the guns finally fell silent. Field Marshal Paulus surrendered. The visuals were haunting. 90,000 German soldiers marching into captivity across the frozen snow. Most would never return. The Battle of Stalingrad was the turning point of World War II. It proved that the Nazi war machine could be stopped. And at the heart of this victory were the snipers. Men and women who turned the ruins into a fortress. Vasily Zaytsev survived the war. His rifle is still preserved in a museum in Volgograd today. But his legacy is not just in the metal and wood of a gun. It is in the words he spoke. Words that defined the spirit of every soldier who fought in those ruins. For us, there was no land beyond the Volga. They held the line. They broke the enemy. And they proved that even when the world is burning, the human will to survive is the deadliest weapon of all.